Hello friends, this video on sexual reproduction in flowering plants part 19 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. So now let us quickly look at the transformation of ovary into fruit. So we got to know how ovule gets transformed into a seed and what is the structure of a seed. Now let us see how ovary is transformed into the fruit. So ripened ovary after fertilization is nothing but the fruit. So if you look at a flower, where do we have the ovary? Somewhere here. So this is the ovary which is present inside the flower, right? Now what happens after fertilization? After fertilization is done, the petals, sepals, everything will fall off and finally this ovary will get transformed into the fruit. So this is the fruit which is nothing but the ripened ovary, and all these parts will just fall off, right? So this is how the fruit will look like. For example, you think of any fruit which you eat, for example a pomegranate. So inside the pomegranate you can actually see small seeds. Those seeds are nothing but the ovules, and the outside thing which you see is the fruit. Similarly, you think of apple, you think of watermelon. So everywhere you see the fruit is there and inside the fruit you have the seeds. So they are nothing but the ovary and the ovules. So let us quickly look at the structure of a fruit. So the wall of the fruit, which is generally fleshy, is known as the pericarp. So pericarp is nothing but the wall of the fruit, the outer layer of the fruit. So this pericarp itself is made up of different layers. That is exocarp, which is the outermost layer of epidermal cells. Next is the mesocarp, which is the middle layer of cells with varying thickness. Like in some fruits it is very thick, in some fruits it is relatively less thicker. And finally the endocarp, which is the innermost layer of cells with varying structure and thickness. So here if you see, this is going to be the pericarp, the skin of the apple. Next is the mesocarp, that is this fleshy layer, and then the innermost is the endocarp. So these are the different walls of the fruit. Similarly, if you think of a mango, so there also the skin of the mango will be exocarp, then the fleshy layer is going to be mesocarp, and then the innermost layer just before the seed, that is going to be the endocarp. So these are the three layers of the pericarp. Now different fruits have different edible parts. In some fruits, the thalamus is the edible part. In some fruits, the mesocarp is the edible part. So the edible part is actually different for different fruits. So let us take the example of apple. So whatever is the edible part, so we basically eat this part. Do you know what is this part? This part is nothing but the swollen thalamus. You remember what is thalamus? What was it? The swollen portion of the stalk. In a flower, if these are the petals, let us suppose, so this was the swollen portion of the stalk and this portion was known as thalamus. So in apple, basically this is that swollen portion, the thalamus. Then you might ask, then where is the fruit? So the true fruit is actually inside. So this deeper portion is actually the fruit. Inside portion is the fruit and outside the swollen part is all thalamus. Next is the banana. So in banana also, which is the edible part? So in banana, the edible part is the ovary. So that is the fruit. So the true fruit is the edible part. So this part is the fruit and the outermost layer is nothing but the layer of the fruit. Mango, in mango, the mesocarp is the edible part. So if you see, this is the exocarp, the outermost layer. This is the middle layer, that is the mesocarp, which is the most fleshy, and this innermost layer is the endocarp, and this is nothing but the seed. So here mesocarp is the edible part. Now please do not get confused with apple, because you might be wondering that in mango, if these are exo, endo and mesocarp, in apple also it should be the same. But apple is an exception. Why it is an exception, we'll get to know. Because apple is not a true fruit, it is a false fruit. We will see how. Next example is coconut. In coconut, which is the edible part, come on, you should be able to answer because we have discussed coconut in detail. This white fleshy structure is the edible part. And what is this white fleshy structure? Absolutely, this is endosperm, which is extremely nutritious. That is why in tender coconut, it is the liquid endosperm, and in a matured coconut, it is a solid endosperm or cellular endosperm. Next is orange. So what about orange? So in orange also, if you see, you have exocarp, endocarp, mesocarp. So which is the edible part? The inner soft fleshy layer. So what is that soft fleshy layer? So now let us talk about two types of fruits which are classified depending upon their origin. They are true fruit and false fruit. Now this is very important because just now I was telling you that apple is an exception. So now why apple is an exception? So that you will understand after you know what is a true fruit and what is a false fruit. So true fruit is the one which is developing from the ovary of the flower. So we have defined fruit as the ripened ovary. However, for some exceptional fruits, it has been observed that the actual fruit, that is the part which we eat, that is not the ovary. That is actually derived from some other parts of the flower. So that is why the concept of true and false fruit came up. So those fruits which directly develop from the ovary, they are called true fruit. Examples are tomatoes, grapes, banana. So all of these, the fruit is nothing but the ovary, and inside whatever seeds you have, they are the ovules, right? Whereas false fruit is the one which either develop indirectly from the ovary, that is from the inferior ovary, or they develop from other parts than ovary. For example, the best example would be apple. So apple is a false fruit because the part of the apple which is edible, which we see as the fruit, that is not the true fruit because that is not the ovary. It is the swollen thalamus. So that means the fruit is actually derived from the swollen thalamus, and that is why it is called a false fruit. So it is formed from the ovary. So a false fruit is derived from the ovary or a part of receptacle or a part of perianth. So that is the concept of false fruit. So they can be derived from other parts as well. So let us take the example of apple. In apple, the central core, this central core has the remains of ovary. This is also not completely ovary, but it has remains of ovary. But this fleshy part is nothing but the swollen thalamus or receptacle, whatever you call it. Similarly, if you take the example of pear, so in pear also the edible part, that is this part, is nothing but the thalamus, the enlarged thalamus, whereas the core at the center which has the seeds. So core at the centers will have seeds, and this core is the ovary, right? So these are some of the examples of false fruits. So when you have to define true fruits are nothing but they are mature ovaries with seeds. So now when we are talking about fruits, what do we observe? We observe that fruits are, whatever we have studied so far, based on that we can say that fruits are like post-fertilization result. So after fertilization has happened, only then the ovary gets changed into fruit. Ovary or some other part of the flower. So is it possible that fruits can be formed without fertilization? So that means I want to get the fruit, but I don't want fertilization to happen. So is that possible? Yes, even that is possible, and those kind of fruits are called parthenocarpic fruits. So let us see what are they. The word parthenocarpy, this word itself means virgin fruit. That means a fruit which has not undergone the sexual interaction. So fruits which develop without fertilization are called parthenocarpic fruits. Now the question is, if fertilization has not happened, then how come the ovary gets changed into fruits? Okay, let's have a look at this. Now these type of fruits, since fertilization does not happen, that means seeds will not be formed because fertilization happens. That is why zygote is formed. So zygote develops into embryo. Since embryo is there, therefore the ovule gets changed into a seed. So the formation of seed also depends on the fertilization. Now no fertilization, so no seeds. So these fruits are going to be seedless. Now can you think of the seedless fruits which you eat? So some of the common seedless fruits are grapes, banana. It is not that only seedless varieties are available. Even the grapes with seeds are also available in the market. Bananas with seeds are also available in the market. But the seedless varieties are preferred. Now the question is, how are these seedless varieties formed? I mean, how fruits are formed from ovary without fertilization? Well, it is the result of mutation. So sometimes some genetic changes take place, and because of that, the ovary directly changes or directly ripens to form a fruit even without fertilization. So this Parthenocarpy can also be induced artificially by application of some hormones, typically the growth hormones. So if you apply those hormones, what will happen? The ovary will tend to grow and it will tend to get matured even before sexual reproduction or even before fertilization takes place. So basically, the fruit is nothing but ripened ovary. So your ovary has to ripen. But under normal situations, the ovary ripens only after fertilization has occurred. But if we want the ovary to ripen even without fertilization, we can apply some hormones. So that is how artificially parthenocarpic fruits can be produced. And that is how seedless varieties of fruits are being produced these days. For example, even seedless watermelons are also. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more videos, attempt free online test, get free study material, find tutors and mentors. Thank you once again.